This is Mile High.
Do I want to tell the story or do I want to show the message?
You've got a lot of work to do between Mile High.
The time has come where we can know
we have a responsibility, an ethical and moral responsibility.
We have to do it better in order to move people along.
Up, down, inside out.
If you get your mind right,
it is not. It is a receiver of thought. Because love is my first technique.
it's now time for the show.
So thrilled that Dr. Donny Epstein is here with us. And, you could say lots of things about him and all the things he's done. So Network Spinal and all the derivations of network that came before then, epi-energetics, epi-healing, Somato Respiratory Integration, and he's just getting started. And, where could we put him? Could be on the philosophy day, the science day, the business day, could be all of them. But truly, though, Donny's known for philosophy and he's known for science and the research that he's done, and also known as, in the art and analysis for sure, and also helping chiropractors in business. He's one of the few people that really synthesizes philosophy, science together into the art, and also can relate it to business in ways that most people don't think. That I thought this would be the perfect place for him to really inspire people for more, to deliver more to the people they take care of. Because ultimately, our art's not for us; it's for the people we're taking care of. Thank you for joining us today, Donny.
It's my pleasure, Danny. I'm really excited about this offering you have for people, science, art, and philosophy, and that I took that very, very personally and very as a real mandate, so to speak. To be able to master science, art, and philosophy, but you have to have the philosophy of your science. You have to have the science in your philosophy. You have to have the art and science, and they're separate, considered separate. But when you have the person in front of you, ultimately the art is what's going to show up. And that's what's important, from the way you communicate to the person, to the way you touch them, and every other aspect, and clinically, what it really is the art. And it's extraordinary. When people have watched me take care of people, they like to hang around and just sometimes just shut up and just let me watch you and adjust me and train me, because there's an art of connection. BJ would wake up in the morning and say, "We're going to adjust now." He just knew a sense of something. Get the big idea, all else follows. The big idea is that the person's own awakening, the connection with mental impulse, the connection, that shows up in all different ways. So, there's a transaction. Most people see things as a transaction. You pay for a service, you get that. Most people, they may take an extra, examine the person, they have them lie down, they sit up. And very often, most chiropractors, or many chiropractors adjusting, the technique is what they'll look at. But the technique is a strategy towards something. It's not the end unto itself. And I've watched chiropractors in all different ways in practice years ago when developing my systems and what I did. And for example, I would see an upper cervical practitioner, Tom White, who was my mentor. He had worked in the B.J. Palmer Clinic with Lyle Sherman, and then in about 1950 opened an upper cervical x-ray lab in New York. And although he used to teach x-ray marking and talk about upper cervical x-ray marking, he would take an x-ray, hold it up for me, and I had 1, 2, 3, 4. For the AP open mouth, I had 7 seconds. For lateral, I had 5 seconds. And the base posterior, I would have 5 seconds. I had to tell him listing. I said, "Tom, I have to measure it." No. He said, "There's an art, the art of looking at it, the art of letting it speak to you. Draw the lines with your eyes." And then he would have us. He would take stereoscopic x-rays, x-ray central beam 1/4 inch to the right, 1/4 inch to the left, put it together with a prism, and you look like B.J. Palmer did in a 3D image. Get a sense of the foramen magnum. In the art, you have to get a sense beyond just the physical form, he told me. When he taught me to palpate, he said, "I know the teachers teach to palpate deeply, but Donny, just run your hand on the spine, cervical spine, whatever it is, and barely touching it." So those are the only times I got to think of B or C in a subject. The first semester, I said, "I can't, Tom, that's what I'm not getting enough getting the palpation. He said, don't worry, eventually if you do this, you have a hunger to serve and to help improve that person's life. And innate will speak with you in ways that you never learned. Learn that. And when I palpate, the art of palpation, I could tell the chemical, physical, emotional. I could tell it would event happen that the system at that point, person got subluxated or disconnected from their innate source in a physical, emotional, mental, structural way. I can even tell how long it's been by repeating and feeling for this. And that's part of the art. And my art must reflect the science, but the consistent reproducibility, and it must represent the philosophy of why. So so I watched even Dr. Whiteham, and he upper cervical repetition, he'd do a leg check. He was also using some peer still going to work, C1, C2, C5, and then pelvic work, which was more a version of taken from Thompson work with a drop piece in those early days, all with instrumentation. And to do a leg check for somebody, take his hands and he'd put it on the sacrum, one on the sacrum here, one on the thoracics. He'd run his hands up like that and just stop and hold his hand like that. I said, Tom, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just checking things out here. I said, well, hold on. You're an upper cervical partition. You just held the contact on the sacrum and on the thoracics. And you go like this, and I see you go like yes or no. What, I did that? No. You're saying yes or no. And I went to other practitioners I know, all different ones, and they all did. They bend hands up to the spine. A couple never taught them to do this, right? And they would they go yes or no. And some they go like, and yes, they just no, they wouldn't. That's part of the art. All art is really it's a cultural narrative. Art is a cultural narrative. It's narrating about something life and a social condition about the life. So what is the big idea of chiropractic? It's not the adjustment of subluxation. That is the strategy used. It is the helping the individual to liberate the multidimensional, the temporal, non-temporal, non-spatial, self-organizing wisdom personalized for that person. And as the neuroskeleton assumes its natural tone, the morphology of the body, and I believe your life, is organized by the innate intelligence. And innate wins over universal forces, which are breaking it down. And the quality of your life is associated with how much energy you have available. It's really about energy. And, we talk about the intelligence, force, and matter, and we talk about that the force in Eternal Life by Reggie Gold, he said force is also energy. E equals mc squared. Energy is actually matter in a different vibration. It's bound matter, bound light we're speaking about. So we're really looking at the art. Is this a system able to move energy and have more access to organizing wisdom? Why? Because when that happens, we actually have evolution at some level. What if your technique matched that and your philosophy, your story matched that? What if it would happen not just every once in a while that you get this, oh my God, person's life turned around? What would you expect it every time? You have to see it differently, to approach the person differently. And you have to, the art of chiropractic is really it's such a gift. It's the most intimate you may have people. People say, well, no, I think a gynecologist is really intimate. I thought, well, actually, it's interesting. When they built at Sherman, they built the road with the shape of the spine. I said, gee, I'm glad it was a gynecological office they have there. But when I used to put the spine up on a restaurant, sign up there, and what's the spine? I put the finger to IVF and go, ow, that's a nerve supply to this and that's stuff I do there. Someone said, it's a good thing you're not a proctologist or a gynecologist. And I said, no, this is the most interprofession. It really is, if you allow the art to happen. And a transaction is, a person's a patient. A patient in 1982, I turned practice member. And that's also the art of how you communicate. Even your business setup is an art there. It's a social narrative about what life is about, what you see as important. It's a cultural field that's established. And I would take care of people, and I'd ask them questions. If you're ill, why are you ill? If you're well, why do you think you're well? What's working for you? What's working against you? What's going on in your life? Because ultimately, isn't that what you want to know anyway? And you start with that. And the art is just connecting with the person about that. Mm. And if they have a symptom, don't say, oh, I don't discuss symptoms. I did it one time. That's my own arrogance. I didn't want to have to deal with that. And the point is, people have symptoms. When they're sick, they haven't been well. It's not how do you feel, but how do you feel about how you feel? That communication is really important. There is a circumstance someone may be concerned about. Then there's the concern they have. And there's the person. A real artist gets past the illusion of what's saying, gets to see what's really going on. Whether it be an abstract painting, you look at a painting, I was an art history major, and you'd see a painting of a landscape or a painting of a bowl of fruit and something. You see a person take it until there were just circles and triangles. And I could see it's the same thing, because artists can simplify what in culture we can't see is make a statement. I used to love the records, the LP records, vinyls. Mm-hmm. Really, when the house burned down, Dan, your mother, and my record album we had from the 1970s and stuff, that type of stuff burned up in the fire. We're really upset about it. But you have the record, and you put on the needle touch, the scratchy sound. That means something to someone who grew up with that. Okay, yeah. So, but the record album was really the artist's narrative about something, whether it be about the Vietnam War during that time, or about love, or whatever's going on. The whole album was a story, and something that you might not have liked on it. You might not like the song, and after a while, another song you like better. You see how it fit together. But what happened after a while is people now play only the one song they like to hear on it. They lose the context. They get just what you like. The artist sees what you like and you don't like. It says the good and the bad. There's a whole range, but doesn't see it as good or bad, just sees it as contrasts like colors. So you have the circumstance. And people say, well, it's because of my arthritis, it's because of this. And well, no, that's the circumstance. The circumstance does not create the person's pain long-term or problems. Then there's the meaning they give it. Well, I can't work. And if I can't work, I'm a bum or something like that. Or, whatever you talk about. Well, then I'll feel this. And no treatments can get rid of the concern. When you take your dog to a vet, what is it? It's the SJAR syndrome. Doc Spot just ain't right. Okay. And you see there's a change in the dog's behavior, the way they're acting. The mother takes the kid to pediatrician, not because that's a fever. We live at home, but the kid's not acting right. There's the way that's experiencing the world, that artistic expression has been altered. And the greatest gift chiropractors have is when that changes, we're trying to change the circumstance and trying to reduce the pain or the meaning of it is not what it's about. Not to be confused. Our role is to be the person. If you help that person who uses the organizing force of the world to organize the body with more available energy, which means more information bandwidth, which means the morphology of the cells of the body and the tone can normalize, and this nerves can give the right messages, and the nerves coordinate this other energy systems also, the nervous system does. And when that happens, the person's different. The innate story is about the person. It's not about the spine. It's not about the nervous system. It's not about health. The real story what it's about is that person being more connected to the organizing force of the universe. Now, chiropractic was started when BJ converted to upper cervical specific. His view, in my opinion, was to get what can we do that affects the most people in the most constructive way without people screwing them up the most, and correct the major distortion. There's a lot of people who need that. The concept of constant evolution or evolving nervous system, well, Didi said progression is a natural way, and that even those entities in the astral plane are progressing. And that's what about. I said, let's do that. You need an artist to do that, an artist. And so a patient, someone comes in to be fixed or to be helped to be restored to the prior, medically it's called minimal state. Well, you say the pre-subluxation state. Well, with subluxation, another technique, they see a different subluxation at a different time, okay? But restore them to a prior state where they were more comfortable or their life was going the way they wanted to go. And, doesn't mean that's the best way either, but it's the way they'll feel more comfortable, right? And the role was you take care of the person as few visits as possible, help get them feel better to get back on track with where they were before in life, which may be the wrong track anyway. You could be on the right track, but you stay there, you get run over. So right. That was it. And it was a transaction. You fix me, you're responsible for doing that. You pay me amount, it's a pure transaction, it's over. When I came with the term practice member, it's not the same thing as a patient. A practice member, and it's only an artist who would even come up with this term there. The practice member is a member of a practice. I had a contest. Why? What should we call a person if not a patient? Because if you're a patient, you have to be sick. I'm a doctor, I have to be the hero. If I'm a hero, you have to be a victim, which means I have to make sure you messed up and I'm still authority. And that cycle continues. I don't want that. So practice members are coming in for something more than a transaction. They want an aspiration of something beyond. They're coming to collaborate that I'm going to help them to be able to liberate life more effectively through the chiropractic spinal care. And their responsibility is to heal, to live, and do something with it. And I would have people to ask questions. Doc, I see you an orthopedist or this, and see you or a pediatrician, whatever it may be. And I'll say, well, I wanted to talk to people in the waiting room. Let them talk about their experiences. I crowdsourced back in the 80s at that time to do that. And let them get a sense of things there. So there's two aspects of art, a masculine and a feminine aspect. And we did a talk of this at Mile High one time. People gave lots of good responses to that. The masculine is a different way than the feminine. Okay? Masculine is more direct. It's like a tree going up straight, containing the energy. It's more about the physical matter as it is there. Mm. The feminine is the quality of the relationships with it as the tree branches out and leaves and flowers blossom. The more masculine looks at the hard bone, obviously is excited about the hard bone. Got to move the bone, and that's what it's about. And why do you want to move a bone, really? Really, reality, or quote, innate movement of the idea I'm talking about, is because that's what's up an X-ray. And that's what people did. And, B.J. Palmer trying to move the bone is not what it's about. It's the fact that the system is able to organize more effectively. And we have to remember that. So a practice member comes in, the practice member wants to be part of a community, part of something else, a different cultural artist. It's a different album you're buying, a different record thing there. And the feminine is different. So the masculine more will be the more mechanical adjustment to the vertebra, is more of a masculine way. Very often want to put more force in or try to make it move or make a sound, because then you're okay for the old male, immature masculine model of the world, harder, faster, deeper, make sure she makes noise. Okay, there. And I'll tell you, the masculine, feminine models in all systems, all businesses apply the same thing. The feminine, and the person more often will be seated or most likely prone. The feminine is more on the back, supine, chest exposed, intimate contact there. Some contacts of a gentle touch contact, the Logan Basic, the breathing of the SOT blocks, a drop piece where you're not doing it, just setting into motion and watching what happens with that. That's more for feminine. Practices that dealt more with people's emotional factors, whether they addressed it or not, but we can part of in the conversation there about that, the connective tissue, the soft tissues, the sad flow, the respiration, that's more for feminine thing. The feminine artistry was about relationships, you and the person, intimacy, and how your relations with people changes. The masculine is more, if you're more productive to do what you want. In developing a network, I specifically dealt with the wave as a feminine aspect because it destabilizes the patterns. Feminine energy destabilizes whatever exists. It creates instability in the system. The masculine tries to create order out of that. Together, there's a whole reality there. This is not about your gender, culture. This is just physiologically and generally how it works, no matter what culture it's in. And then, so then you have a combination of that. And most chiropractors will use in practice a while, will use both types and integrate the both types there. And that's the art of it. So those people who dealt more with emotional, mental causes of subluxation, if you could say that, or contributing factors, more feminine. The masculine is more the physical injury, what happened to you had that happen. The feminine is, well, what was going on when that happened? What's going on in your life? How you do it? It's more relationship-wise. So the wave, I set up it to destabilize a circuitry that's pattern that's going on over and over and over, not adaptive to the environment. That's called stability. A stable system means it's not vulnerable to change. An unstable system means it's vulnerable to change, opposite our cultural model. That's it. You have to have just the right amount of each of it there. So I believe with Gonstead, the way it was really done initially, that was actually where you get to hook up with a person. You get the position, just the right position, weight and thrust. That's the feminine part. The thrust is the masculine part. And some people may need one, some people may need the other in their response. And how you can examine the body is going to be different for each. Where the tissue, when you make a contact, tissue traction to me is essential. 80% of it's attraction. How you hold the tissue traction and find at that point, you're artistically in training to the person. You're developing, like in Gonstead, in trained oscillation between the doctor or the patient or a practice member. It's an entrainment of the two of you. Alpha waves both show a connection there. So you're looking at that when you're going to adjust. Now, why do you think the thought of chiropractic is a dynamic thrust? Whoever said that? It's a dynamic result. So remember, even in your practice, clinical practice, and your art, you are either looking to do the work or to get the result. They're two different ways. I'm committed to get the result, and I want innate to do the work, because innate's the one that bound the energy and bound the information, and then got lost along the way, because the educated mind through its somatic structures was in a facilitated loop for some of the time space. So what's the force? The forces of the adjustments have to use more force. Well, there's no evidence for that. There's no evidence for that. Again, the masculine immature model. And I'll say something now, Danny, and if you want to edit this out, you can here. Okay. What is the similarity between immature masculine and Disneyland?
I don't know.
A long wait for a short ride. And the long wait is for the experience. The challenge in the chiropractic profession that's always existed is that most chiropractors have not had a chiropractic enough experience, or the context to know its value. And it's not a chiropractic experience, it's through chiropractic. It's experience of a more available energy to carry more information about the cells of your body, your emotions, your body, and life. So in an intelligence, the mental impulse, perfectly suited for you, can organize that into a different reality. Chiropractic today for a better world tomorrow. So in developing the technique, I looked at that, but then where is the masculine part? I see it as a spinal gateway. When we go to adjust a vertebra, we're putting a force, most people, in transverse, around transverse or spinous. That's what shows an x-ray. But the real change occurs with articulation. So I was involved in a research study with Bob Blanks, neuroanatomy, neurobiology professor, who was a senior investigator in the quality of life study we did. And he was doing a study, he called me in to consult on acupuncture. And the acupuncturists put the needle in and they started moving it around. And they had a new device that measured ultrasound. And they said it was really uncanny. It was amazing. Uncanny. I don't know what can is, okay. But uncanny, as they go like that. And as you go like that, the acupuncturist was following the point of greatest hydration and greatest electrical conductivity. That's an art. You had to do that, to be there. That's the connection with the person. So his conclusion was that is important. His conclusion, I never got to see the final paper, but I consulted while I was researching the model he might use for it. His theory, he said, was that the acupuncture meridian is non-temporal, non-spatial. Acupuncture really is not in time or space. It's a multidimensional process of organizing wisdom, a development of chi in different levels. And he said that the early acupuncture was a spiritual practice, it wasn't medicine. And when the communists came in, communists came in, all spiritual came out, it became a therapeutic tool, it's a way of life.
Right.
It wasn't just a needle, it was food, everything to get this life chi to move there. So he said that what he's proposing is that the acupuncture point, the meridian and the point itself, is an interdimensional vortex, the point. And the consciousness of it exists between dimensions, and he called it a gateway, acupuncture gateway. So I said, as a chiropractor, I'm looking to adjust vertebra, whether it be a talgarico, drop piece, a gentle touch, wherever it was. And I said, well, why am I adjusting something? I had to talk with Jerry Klum in his office one time about that. And I said, I don't want to adjust subluxation because as my goal, because that's not the practice of medicine, it's not another therapy. To fix or correct something, we don't know another boogeyman or whatever it's called to have to be frightened of. I want instead to correct something. What do you want the result to be? Rather than something going away, what new thing is emerging? When you focus on that, your art changes because you could witness something that you couldn't have witnessed before. So I said, Jerry, we're adjusting there, but if the change occurs in articulation, why don't they find a place around their articulation to put the force in? And never the one that's locked, almost locked, because that's a male model to force something on somebody. You know, any guy knows that, you know, first you had that model, after a while you find out everything you did during the day makes a difference whether you get lucky at night. Okay, it's not just that, it's everything. It's not just that. You know, foreplay is everything that existed before. The same type of thing where you touch, show up. When you touch the person, I'm here. I see you. I know you. I love you. Let's go. That's it. When you feel it, this is it. But if you go to the area where there's restriction and try to move that, you're not accepting of the person. You're trying to change them. You're trying to transform them. That's not your job. When you see a system as it is, without the hunger to change it or transform it or make it different, the system starts recognizing this energy exchange and it starts already getting ready. The engine is on, it's purring, the motor is going, it's an idle. So I said that, wow, the force application should be at around the area of articulation where, I don't know, some of the vague area. I start feeling a vortex developing. As I looked, where are you? Hello, show yourself. And when you do that, it shows, I don't know, you know, but I want to connect with you that way. And I started developing this thing called a spinal gateway. And I would put the force into the area that appeared to have a higher threshold of excitability, not a lower, because dominant neurological patterns that exist, and the way they be annihilated is not by competing with it. You compete with something, you get more of it. Eventually we become that which we compete with or fight, we become, okay, always. And then instead of that, I said, well, let me find that spot, because 3 ways a dominant neurological pattern dissipates, even if it's been there for 30 years. In a second, please don't say, because this problem has been here for 30 years, you have this mental degeneration, take a long time to heal. No, that's your subluxation. Healing is instantaneous. It may take a long time to integrate that into your life, but it'll change their identity to have experience of innate. But healing is the second there's more protection, there is a healing occurring, not of the condition of the person. Okay, there. So, in getting back to this, 3 ways. 1, if you compete with the systems, that's what medicine is. Something's high, something's low. You make it fast or slow, make it opposite. The second way is it's not needed. You run across the street, blood pressure drops, blood sugar level changes, etc. Muscles relax. The third is called the non-specific stimulus, and this was also, when you read Speransky's works further by that. You see, I can't separate science from art for philosophy. To me, it's one. Here. And a non-specific stimulus is a slight stimulus put into the body that it can't recognize. It doesn't fight against. It's like homeopathy. The vital force recognizes vital force, and it just self-organizes. So if I could put a force in around the articulation, and I do it near the vertebral-jaw relationship because that affects the whole structure of the system and the appropriate mechanoreception. If I could do that, not where it's locked, or there where there's a higher threshold of excitability, then it could be a change, because when that subluxation occurred, at least 2 of the joints are still hooked into the defense strategy that turned the system off. And I may get a great change and put force in, but if I have to put 10 units of force in to get 2 units of change, that's still pretty good. But if I put 2 units of force and get 10 units of change, that's nonlinear. And the more you get on that way, it's a different aspect. And the gateway is when the wave goes through a network, information that's been disconnected, alienated, isolated, and the information has not been available in the whole bandwidth of experience in the world, it becomes available. It goes into this gateway. The gateway moves, it compresses it, and it sends it out to a larger field, the energy field on the body, and sends a signal back to it. So that's the masculine-feminine union. Masculine-feminine union is the base of all creation there. And that's the art. Is there union there? Is there union? I'm not making anything right or wrong for people. You have to find the way you want it and what you do. But I'll appreciate the artist is something else. I will touch a person, and now. I will, you're holding a contact in a vertebra, okay, or traction, whatever it is. How long do you hold it? I would tell people, palpate with your finger or feel with your heart. When you're feeling with your finger, with your attention is on your finger, you always find places what's wrong, not what's right. What's blocked, what's tense. Have you ever learned in chiropractic college? I never learned. What is an ideal spine supposed to feel like? What is it like when it really flows? What's the muscle tension pattern supposed to feel like? No. So is your art going to be an abstract? People look at it, or you get a canvas and it's a green square on a white canvas, okay? Or is it a realistic picture of nature to look, oh my God, how is this possible?
You know, here's the thing. People think about art and they think move the bone, they think technique, they think the x-ray, they think analysis, think, are you correcting it? What's the line of drive? And all of those things. But what you're talking about is beyond.
Yeah. If you want to give,
and if you want to give the adjustment with that extra something, you have to go beyond.
You have to start with an extra something. And you know, it's a relationship. The art is a relationship. I've shown you, and it seems crazy, but if I use a thumb move, I can move anything, any vertebra, with any way, with no rotation, just like that in a second, if I want to do that, okay? And if I do it, and I do it at times, I do it to you, I don't to many people, it's never to move the bone or because I'm frustrated with the person's progress. I put it in at that point because I believe, and I have no direct evidence for it, it's belief I have, that once you put a structural force in, that you're going to put a structural force into the system, you tell the nervous system at this point, fix it this level, and this is the level that you're at.
Mm-hmm.
It locks it in. And if the person has relief of tension in the area, that's great. But every time there's more, you give the adjustment again at that point. What's happening is the system does not have to get lazy. It's like a crutch. It does not have to self-organize and get the information in that was holding the substation in place, the energy about that traumatic event or thing that it couldn't integrate. We wanted to get the information again as on the way going back to normal tone. And none of it has to be conscious, but it's a whole different picture there. And the art of how you speak to someone, the art of how you touch somebody. I remember you're now in practice 25 years, right, Danny?
It's hard to believe, but yes.
25 years.
Actually longer than that, but yeah.
The office is 25 years, that's right.
Yeah, the one I practiced in South Carolina.
Right, yeah. So I remember early in practice, you said, how do you do it? So what? Someone doesn't have a clue about something. You talk to them a minute, they're totally ready, and they get the big idea. And I said, it's not in your script. It's not in that. It's in the art of connecting with someone. Now, this is the point. How intimate do you want your touch to be? How much impact you want to make?
Mm-hmm.
Having sex is a transaction. Making love is an aspiration to a higher level.
Mm-hmm.
You can eat a meal, but doesn't mean you're going to be satisfied. You can watch someone sleep, doesn't mean you're rested. It's another quality. And that other quality is a quality of life, and that quality is what the artist thrives on that. Can I deliver precise force application? You better believe. We started Sherman 15 years ago, or whatever. I did the toggle monitor, and I had to change the setting because my toggle was 1/10, my contact was 1/10,000th of a second. And it was about 6 times more accurate than the activated instrument, or whatever dental impact that they used at the time, whatever they call it there. And I was able to say in that one time, 2 or 3 different peaks at the same time, waves in that. And how'd you do that? Well, I cared about the art as an art. I, of course, art, technique, I see as Whitehall, a philosopher, said, technique is ceremonial rehearsal for change or practice.
Wow. Donny, you definitely always bring another dimension or additional dimension or depth degree that people have not thought about before. And definitely the wonderful gift about it, or one of the wonderful gifts, is the instability it brings to what people think they have as their answers.
And every answer creates a new problem.
Right. And
that's its purpose. One of the most important things you can remember is a 4-letter word. NEXT. When something's taking you off target in light, you say next, next. Because all you can be sure of in the next second is going to be next. Whether you're unsubstantiated enough to perceive it is a different story. This is it. The extraordinary is already there. Unreasonable is there. The more interference or distortion there is in the mental impulse interpretation, the more the computer screen of your mind, which is called reality, doesn't see it. And
well, I mean, you've inspired people for 4 decades, maybe longer. I don't know if I'm counting right, and also have so many other people's methods and approaches by making them ask new questions. So really, truly, the visionary that you have been for chiropractic and continue to be, if this should more than inspire people to A, look deeper at their art, B, be at Mile High, and stay for an extra day with Donny. More details to be revealed, because there's that opportunity as well. And thank you so much for all that you give to chiropractic. Is there any last thing you want to share about the art of chiropractic or about humanity?
I want to share something else here, that I want to acknowledge you and Rochelle there, because you took what you knew as a seed I was bringing to the world and said, how could you bring it in a way beyond technique in many ways to people and help open people up to this way of thinking in there. And I don't know of any other vehicle in the chiropractic profession that, regardless of your technique, if your why is similar, liberating humanity through what chiropractic offers, to a higher innate expression, not as just a philosophy, but as a reality. If that's what happens, what you're doing here with this book, what you do with Mile High, is really the gathering for that. And there are so many chiropractors who have dropped out of coming to chiropractic events, joining associations and things, basically because they don't realize that the profession, the promise of the profession, is not the profession. It's a promise of the principle. I wasn't looking to defend the profession or grow the profession, although I helped when schools needed. I wanted to help to say, what would this impulse called chiropractic, for its niche in the world, what is it like? What would it be like in today's time? How is it involved? And how could the bigger picture that DD and BJ really had, but at the time had not enough to communicate, or the culture wouldn't accept it? This is the time for this message. So I just want to mention that. And there's an art in putting this program together. And the art comes from the culture. This is a cultural narrative that Danny and Michelle Knowles are putting together, a cultural narrative of what's possible for humanity through the chiropractic profession. And he's putting together at Mile High and during this event. It is the album that has some of chiropractic's greatest hits on it.
Of today. Donny, thank you so much. Thank you for taking your valuable time to share with everybody. And I know it'll stretch their thoughts around the art of chiropractic. And I hope it helps inspire you to keep changing spines, lives, and minds with chiropractic.